What up everyone, it's your man XMan87 here, bringing you another Marvel Legends video, and what I have for you today is the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Marvel Legends Spider-Man the Animated Series, Doc Ock, and Aunt May 2-pack review. Before we get into everything, if you could please leave a thumbs up, like rating on the video, it'll help show your support for my channel and I greatly appreciate it. Now with that said, let's go! Let's first take a look at May Parker here, and for something that's based off the animated series, they sure gave her a realistic looking face. Not the first time Hasbro has done this, as they did it with some of the animated properties such as Star Wars Clone Wars and Rebels, like Ezra Bridger and Harrison Dula. To be honest, bro, I've always wanted an Aunt May figure, so they could have slapped on any old lady's head on a body, make it Aunt May, and I'm cool with it. She has a similar hairstyle to the animated series, which is okay. And for her facial expression, she looks kind of concerned or regret, as if she tasted Bud Light for the first time. For her base body, they pretty much dressed her as the animated series. She has her teal blazer jacket, a white shirt, and a purple tie underneath, purple long skirt. Same legs as the MCU Peggy Carter. She basically has the same mobility as that MCU Peggy Carter figure. So don't expect much with this. She's basically gonna be a stand-in figure. For accessories, besides her open hands, she comes with a pair of fists, and I'm just like, why? Who is Aunt May gonna punch? Seriously. I think this was a waste of an accessory, you know? Give us something better. Maybe a tray holding a teapot. I don't know. Something like that. For articulation, her head is on a disc hinge, so she looks about that far up, that far down, left, right, and it does pivot. She got her arms that can move up that far, down, and you can swing them around. You got the elbow swivel and single jointed elbows, wrist swivel, and a wrist hinge. Ball jointed waist, so she only moves about that far forward, that far back. It swivels, and she kind of pivots a bit. Okay, and because of the skirt, her legs cannot move at all. Like, can't move them apart, can't move them up and down. Just the knees that you're gonna get like this. Double jointed knees that work as a single joint pretty much, you know. You can kind of force it so it can go higher up through this slit, but that's it. I wouldn't have went with plastic. Honestly, they should have given us a soft, good skirt. That way, you know, you can pose her to sit down. Because basically, she serves no posing purpose whatsoever. She's pretty much a action figure. And the skirt cuts real low, so sometimes if you bend her back, yeah, you can see her granny panties exposed, so there you go for those who are into that kind of stuff. She's got a thigh swivel, and her ankles move up, down, and they pivot. While she serves no purpose for posing, she serves an integral part in Spider-Man's life, giving her a great and meaningful purpose in a Spider-Man collection. I never expected a great figure out of an Aunt May, as you can see why with this figure having cheap-looking plastic, no articulation, nor creative accessories. But she's essential for making the man behind the mask who he is. I'm rating Aunt May with a 1 out of 10. Now to take a look at Doc Ock, and oh, he's freaking amazing. His head sculpt came out animated series accurate, well, you know, with the realistic take on it, but he just looks so damn good. And look at his visors, man. I like the goggles because it has the cell shading across from it. It's dope. I like it. You can see his eyebrows above the visor, his little bowl cut haircut. That just looks great. Yeah, I don't mind the realistic approach on the animated figures, because then I don't want them looking too cartoony on the comic book shelf, because then it would just, I don't know, I guess it'll look a little bit off. I know they wanted to look universal. Hey, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And Doc Ock has a lot going on here. Obviously, he has the tentacles, so before we get into the tentacles, I want to definitely cover the base body first for this, because it's an all-new sculpt from scratch, and he just looks absolutely amazing. This is my favorite depiction of Doc Ock look-wise. So this is the one I've always wanted in action figure form. I just love the armored look. He always looked so badass in the animated series with it. And it looks great on this figure. However, I will say that there are some things that I wish they translated in here that would have made it feel animated, but not without that ridiculous cell shading. So for instance, I mean, at a glance, his armor can look a little plain looking. So what I wish they did to really bring out the highlights of the armor is some, you know, black tracing to highlight some of the armors, like around the orange, obviously around the chest, the shoulders right here. They could have really brought it to life. The design pattern here, you can see they could have traced that in black, similar to what NECA does with their Ninja Turtles line. You know, they don't have to go full cell shading with it. Just trace it and highlight the nice sculpting bits of the line work, and that way you could also blend it in well with your comic book display. He's still gonna blend in well, but I just think that would have really gave it some extra oomph. You can always take one of those Gundam markers and trace it yourself. Just saying, I think if it came like that, it would have been so much better. But that shouldn't take everything away from this figure, because again, all new sculpt from scratch. It's beautiful, and it makes it feel fresh. There are things I really love about this figure. Obviously, I just let you know there are things I don't like about it too, and I'll go over that. But for the most part, I love this figure. Now, one of the things I really don't like about this figure is the soft plastic they used for the arm. So if I move this arm up, you could see, let me try to get in focus there and get a light. You see the peg that connects from the deltoid to the bicep? It's already causing a stress mark. Like, it's so white, you can see, and even on the other end too, hopefully the light captures it just a little bit. But it's just like, what the hell? Why is it that soft? Why can't they use hard plastic, good sturdy plastic? That is not reassuring me that it's going to have longevity and most likely will snap over time. So I gotta be careful how I use these arms, because moving it up, it's kind of tight. So yeah, this is always gonna get stressed. That area is gonna get stressed. Look at the peg. It should not be white, not even a hint of white. So that's the weakest area of the plastic for this figure. But I love the aesthetics of this figure, man. So nice. Again, they have the sculpted line work right there, and they went with a ball joint, which is a smart choice. It's the right choice, because if they did an ab crunch, then yeah, a torso cut or even a diaphragm swivel, that would have ruined the aesthetics here. So I'm happy they went with a ball joint. Yeah, and with this back piece of the tentacle, if they went with a ab crunch or diaphragm swivel, that would have ruined the placement for this, and probably would have left something hanging and looking real weird. So again, good choice. Arms look good. It's pinless. I like the way the gloves came out there. Closed fists. His belt, all new sculpt, man. I love this. And the legs came out really, really nice. Nice sculpt work all around. Again, pinless legs. Yeah, man, I love this armored look for Doc Ock. We get the boots right there with orange paint. It's looking clean on both of mine, so I'm happy with that. And they sculpted the trimming of the soles for the bottom of the feet. Now, the highlight of this figure are his tentacles, no doubt about it, and I don't care what anyone says, but they look freaking awesome to me, okay? Hasbro finally gave us bendy wire tentacles, something that was sorely lacking with their Doc Ock figures. Toy Biz gave us the bendy wire tentacles back in the day. So there are things I like about this more than the Toy Biz one, and there are some things that I like more about the Toy Biz. Obviously, like articulated pincers. We don't get that here. Instead, we get pre-posed sculpted pincers, so you get two that are open and two that are closed. So it would have been nice if they were articulated to have that option to clamp down on a figure. One thing I like about these tentacles more than the Toy Biz one is that they went with more of a plastic material, because the Toy Biz had this rubbery-ish kind of material, which was good for bendability. I mean, this won't bend as much, but it still has good bendability. Great, I should say, actually. But the problem with the Toy Biz being so rubbery-ish is that over time, that material starts to deteriorate and it causes like peeling. And I know I have some of the Toy Biz bendy wire tentacles, and it was just, yeah, over time they don't have longevity. It peels, it looks ugly. Keeping the plastic like this, you won't get that kind of deterioration. So it's built for longevity with the material. However, speaking of longevity, another problem I have with this is that, how do I start off with this? It's a little loose. I mean, at first it was tight. I had to use some dry nail polish to kind of tighten it a bit. But it does get loose over time. I had this for a few weeks. At first it was sturdy, but then it kind of just like dips down after a while. And that's because mainly, look what they did here. Let me pull this out. Inside the socket is just plain and solid. There's just no kind of ratchet socket there. And then with the tentacle at the end point right here, the peg, they put like a little kind of rim around there that looks like it's supposed to have a ratchet kind of function to it. But that's the problem. If you don't have a ratchet socket here and you have a ratchet-like peg here, it's not going to work. So because it's solid, that's why it keeps, you know, falling down, it needs to hold position. It's just poor engineering, and the Toy Biz one had a ratchet socket, which always held position. So that's a bummer, and again, you might have to use some dry nail polish to rough it up over time. So yeah, it can hold position for now, but if I go any lower, yeah, there you go, you see? But I love the bendability. It's nice to just curl it up and, you know, tie up an enemy, you know, just, I don't know, just grab Aunt May, for instance, and just keep curling it up like so. That's pretty cool, you know. You could hold her up, and god damn it, keep her up. Come on, Doc Ock. Hold. It just keeps sinking. See, this is why they needed a ratchet socket in that back piece for the tentacle. But you could do like what I did right here and use the top 2 tentacles and coil up the figure. And the best thing about these tentacles is that you're able to levitate him, so that's the biggest W for me. So you can't do it. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not able to do it with this figure. If they do tell you that, then they are full of shit, and that's someone you shouldn't listen to. Especially if they didn't put the effort to show you on screen like I did here. And just to show you, I didn't cheat. So you can see there's nothing supporting these, and I have the closed pincers there and the open pincers because I did get an extra Doc Ock, so that means I'm able to display, you know, all pincers. So if I wanted all the open ones, sure, he's going to be a lot easier to stand with his tentacles. My homie David did buy my extra Doc Ock because I know he wanted to do some customizations with it. And so I wanted the extra tentacles to put with my classic Doc Ock. And that's like the other best thing with these tentacles is that they're backwards compatible to fit with your classic comic Doc Ock. And it's so good to see this classic comic Doc Ock with bendy wire tentacles on it, as it should have been in the first place. And wow, my Doc Ock is still holding position. And that's the one thing. Yeah, you can levitate him, but after a while he'll get wobbly and fall down. But I did try it with the open pincers on all 4s, and he actually stood position until I just took him off of it. He didn't fall at all, so, you know, I'm sure he'll wobble over time. If you like to keep him like that on display, I wouldn't recommend it. But, you know, just letting you guys know. I will say that I recommend heating this Doc Ock first before putting these tentacles on, because some parts were really hard to plug in, and some parts over time just plug out easily. As you can see, this one's kind of popping out, but for the most part you can still, you know, bend it. You might experience some of them pop out. Just put it back in, you know, and at least they gave us this option. As you can see, like right there, it's not 100% stabilized, so if you're looking to display these tentacles with your classic comic Doc Ock and, you know, play with it, just letting you know. As you can see, I'm kind of having issues with this bottom one. The top 2 on mine feel fine for the most part. You know, it's holding position, which is the good thing. But it might be different on yours, you know, I don't know. I'm just letting you know how that is on my Doc Ock. Another cool thing is you can actually swap out the pincers with the comic Doc Ock. So if you want to switch it up, yeah, there you go. Just doesn't match the silver, in my opinion. This is a much brighter silver. But this is the Doc Ock from the Silk 2-pack, which was brighter. The one that came with the SPDR wave had a darker finish to it, so that would probably blend in much better with this. And just so that you see, they kept the scope the same as the comic version, so it blends well all together. And you can see this is very hard to get him balanced on his tentacles. And this took me a while, so I'm gonna pan out here so you can see that he's fully balanced. So yeah, as you can see, it's a lot harder to levitate the classic comic Doc Ock with these tentacles, but it is doable. It's just gonna take a lot of patience. I wish I could teach you how to do it, but it's one of those things you're just gonna have to play with the balance here, you know? And definitely rely on curling up the tentacles here, as you could see. Of course, if you mod it with real metal cables, as you've seen some folks do in the past, then yeah, you're always gonna get that stability. But, you know, just wanted to show you that you can still get it done with these, because you can always rely on me on putting effort in my videos. So here I was going for a Doc Ock in disguise to give him a trench coat hiding his tentacles. And I went with the Marvel Legends Toy Biz Thing figure. And yeah, it came out too big. I tried, you know. I was trying to look for a brown trench coat. The Mafex Gambit didn't work. It was way too tight. It just wouldn't work. I don't know. Think of another company that might have a soft goods brown trench coat. Try the Old Man Logan Mezco figure. That may work. Did he have a brown trench coat or a white lab coat in the animated series? I can't remember now. Pretty sure he had a brown one, so I kind of wanted to, you know, pull that look off. Well, I went ahead and tried the Marvel Legends Retro Beast Figures lab coat, and yeah, it could probably work if you cut this slit all the way down, so you know you can have this part of the coat hanging down, or just cut holes through it, but you gotta be precise with it. You know, the arm sleeves are just way too big. I really hope they make a Doc Ock with a soft goods lab coat. That would be so awesome. Anyway, I tried, man. I just wanted to give you that visual. Now for accessories, Doc Ock comes with a right gripping hand, and it has a vertical hinge. And this is good if you want him holding one of those Marvel Legends lab flasks. And he has a posed open hand for his left side. And for me, alternate hands for a Doc Ock figure is just as important as him including alternate pincers. So there's no reason why he shouldn't have all 4 open pincers and closed pincers to fit on the tentacles, which is why I think he should always have articulated pincers. So if they wanted to ditch the articulated pincers or claws, whatever you want to call them, you know what I mean, then they should have ditched the closed fist for Aunt May and give us all 4 styles of these pincers. Now let's go over articulation for Doc Ock. His head is on a double ball peg, which I was extremely excited about, right? But then when you move his head up, it's good. You know, for the most part it's good, but when you move it down, you could barely move it down. And, you know, when I checked the socket right there, they barely gave it any breathing room at the lower neck. This upper portion is fine. He could still, you know, rock it around. They gave it some space at least, but you know, that lower ball peg needed some more breathing room. I hate when they put cuts and don't take advantage of that area for articulation. So his head moves left, right, and he does pivot side to side, and he rocks around. Arms can only move about that far, you know, a little bit lower than a T-pose, not exactly straight. Hold on, I could get a little more out of it. Just playing with it. So yeah, for the most part, a straight T-pose, and it moves down. You can move it. It's gonna be hard to swing it around because of this armored piece, so I'll just say just swing it back and forth, and then you have his bicep swivel, double jointed pinless elbows. That gives you a 90-degree bend, wrist swivel, and a wrist hinge. Ball jointed waist, so he could move about that far forward, not much. That far back, it's not going to be much because I understand he's got that back piece for the tentacle. He's got the waist swivel, and he does pivot nicely side to side, and he can rock it all around. He gets some nice twist diagonally though. That's really good. His legs move about that far apart. His legs can kick up about that high and kick that far back. His legs can also rock around. You got the thigh swivel. You got double jointed knees, but he does not have heel to the butt. And I thought he would have a boot swivel, but no boot swivel. A shame, they could have took advantage of that cut. But it just looks like the boot is an overlay instead of an actual cut on the sculpt. And he's got his ankles that move up that far, down that low, and you can rock them around. And again, his tentacles are bendable, and they rotate right here on the sides. And you also have his pincers that twist, and they have a rotation because of the ball joint right there. I just love how you could pose him as if his tentacles were talking to him. Yes, the power of the sun in the palm of my hands. This figure indeed has some flaws in its engineering and needs to revisit the drawing board to figure out those schematics to have more stability. But there's so much goodness in this that pushes the bad off to the sides. Aesthetically, the sculpt on his armor is incredibly done. Dare I say perfect. I'm rating Doc Ock a respectable 8 out of 10. Let's kick off comparisons with the comic Dr. Octopus. And while I love the classic comic look for Doc Ock and its design, I can't take his look seriously compared to this armored Doc Ock. This armored one looks like he can take Spidey's kicks and punches. It's just my favorite Doc Ock design from any medium, as I have a huge nostalgic attachment to it. Here is Doc Ock next to another Spider-Man animated series figure this year that I just recently acquired, and that's Kraven the Hunter. Here is Doc Ock next to the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends figure. I just have the 90s animated series head on it. This is the perfect way to have a Legends 90s animated series style Spider-Man without all that cel-shaded caca. Here he is with Aunt May for our look of the 2-pack altogether. Here is Aunt May next to Peter Parker, and this is such an important pairing to have together. This will be such a delight for some basic photography displays. Hopefully we'll get an animated series Peter Parker to perfectly go with this Aunt May. Lastly, here is the Spider-Man animated series Sinister Six roster, dubbed the Insidious Six, with Doc Ock. We got Chameleon, Rhino, Mysterio, Scorpion, and Shocker. We really need a 90s animated series version of Chameleon, really bad. And now to wrap things up, my final rating for this 2-pack altogether is a 4.5 out of 10. As you can see, I went with a low rating, and mainly because I love it and hate it at the same time. I love it because I get the Doc Ock I always wanted, and I hate that they had to lock Aunt May behind him in this pack. I get they probably wanted to put her in with a character that'll help sell her, but she doesn't fit in here with him really. I know there's a connection and history between these two characters, but I just feel like it would have been better to have her in a 2-pack with the animated series Peter Parker instead. It's a $53 set, and split it down the middle, Aunt May is a $26 figure. Ain't no way she's worth that value for a figure that feels like it has arthritis. It can barely move. Doc Ock is justifiable for that price point, but it's a pricey set with little to no accessories. To me, Doc Ock would have been fine as a retro carded deluxe, which I still feel they'll probably re-release this version that way, but I don't see Aunt May being re-released, so if you need the character, I think this will be the only way to get it. Aunt May is a first time in the line, and as the most important character in Spider-Man's life and lore, she's a must for my Spider-Man collection, especially since I'm a heavy Spider-Man universe builder. I need every Spidey character made in Legends, but that's just me, and I know she won't be for everyone. I have my complaints with this Doc Ock, which I think many will find valid, but I'm not going to pretend like I don't like this figure, because the truth is, I absolutely love it. I just hope that the Legends team hears my critiques in this video, so the next time they get around to doing another Doc Ock, they make the adjustments needed, such as using harder plastic and making his tentacles with ratcheting sockets for stability. While frustrating at times to try and capture some poses, I'm still having a lot of fun with these tentacles and figuring out what I can and can't pull off. I'm very appreciative that they've given us this function this time around, as those pre-posed sculpted tentacles that were bendable limited your playability. So yeah, while there are still some limitations, I'm not completely limited. The aesthetics and the sculpt are beautiful, but I felt some black tracing could have really took it up a notch visually. I'm going to say what I said in my Craven short review. Growing up with the Spider-Man animated series, this was my definitive Doc Ock look to me. So not only do I want my Spider-Man shelf to be thematically comic based, but animated series inspired too. So he'll temporarily replace my comic one on the shelf, and I can always go back and forth switching between the two on my displays. This Doc Ock has his foot in the bag to be in my top 10 Legends of 2023. Now I kick it back to you. What do you think of this 2-pack? Did you get it or passed? What character from Spider-Man the Animated Series would you like to see next? I know I mentioned Chameleon earlier, but a young Vulture would be nice. Comment below, let me know, we'll chat about it. That was my review. Please follow me on Instagram if you haven't already at xmanny87. Hit the notification bell so you always know when my latest videos are up. Share and subscribe if you're new. See you on the next review. Peace, peace.